Welcome to Goa. It's that time of the year when the beaches and the parties take a backseat to the movies. A few kilometers from here, the International Film Festival of India is in full swing. I am at the Film Bazaar. You probably haven't heard of the bazaar, but I can assure you it's altered the movie choices that you've made. The Film Bazaar is a 4-day event held alongside IFFI. What happens here actually alters the Indian film landscape, which makes it the perfect place for me to look at the state of the Hindi film. But first, a quick primer. Hindi cinema is Hindi independent cinema. Generally speaking, these are movies that are low on budget, production value and stars, but high on script, ambition and originality. These films are subversive and open-ended. They are posing questions instead of providing answers. They are interested in contradictions, not the status quo. Instead of a generic gloss, they carry the director's signature. I spoke to some of the biggest names at the bazaar about the state of the Hindi independent film. What do you think the independents really need to do to find viewers? Because in my head, I think that's the fundamental gap still. You know, we've really come of age, we're at film festivals all over the world, but to still get viewers for these films is still a problem. Many of them don't get picked up for distribution, even the award-winning ones. You know, so what do they need to do to, since you bridge the gap, how do they bridge the gap?
I think one needs to learn the art of conning, you know. You have to be con man even to sell your honesty. Because nobody is ready to buy honesty. Nobody, because it's the business of emotions. But still, it's a business. There's money involved. And how do you get the visibility to bridge the gap, if you come to that point? To bridge the gap, if you don't have a star, you have new people, then you need visibility in public to get them to the theatres. So somewhere you have to, sell faith to the money man, so he puts his money on your vision. So that comes either through a star or the complete belief of the money man in you. So somewhere you have to con, either the star or the money man. So that I have been doing very well for past many years.
The new filmmakers today are actually the genuine independent filmmakers in terms of execution. They don't want to lose control on anything. I really genuinely feel that in a year where we have actually 3 standout movies in festivals. We have had Killa, we stood out in Berlin, we have had Italy, and we have had Court. I feel that somewhere filmmaking is our responsibility of all of us filmmakers, that we come together and we make sure that films like that come out. Because somewhere the theatrical release of these movies and their success empowers me indirectly to be more free. Definitely, we all each have our own audience. Dibakar has his audience, Vishalji has his own audience, I have my own audience. And we urge to our audience that give these movies a chance. Come and see that movie and turn them into a successful movie so we can make better movies.
I don't think the problem is with the viewers. The problem is with the path between a filmmaker and a viewer. It is distribution and exhibition, both ways. Currently, the system is where distributors take the film and put it out, and exhibitors give 20 shows to a big film, 2 or 3 shows you have to fight for a small film. Those show timings are the most crucial. There are so many screens filled up with the same film. So it's a challenge of an ecosystem.
Over the last 8 years, the bazaar has become a desired destination for filmmakers, writers, producers, distributors, commissioning agents and film festival programmers. Last year, 831 delegates from 36 countries came here. This year, there are 30 productions in the co-production market and close to 150 projects across all the sections. The bazaar was set up in 2007 by the NFDC. It is the brainchild of NFDC Managing Director Neena Lath Gupta. Some of the most internationally feted Indian films have come out of this space. What were the challenges for you?
Building the trust of the industry was possibly the biggest challenge. Building the trust of the industry both in India and internationally was very difficult for us. And the first few years I had to run around and beg people to put in their projects in the work in progress lab or in the screenwriters lab. And they'd always be worried, our ideas could get stolen, our film could, there could be copyright issues. So it was, building faith took time. And they know that we will guard their content and the products the way we would guard our own.
Nina, when you look back at the 7-8 years of Film Bazaar, can you pick like the one moment where you thought things had changed? Was there one time, one film that just tipped it?
Well, certainly the lunchbox, the line. Everybody's looking for a new lunchbox. But for me personally, what is satisfying is not that one gem that comes out and does very well, but the fact that we're steadily bringing out an increasing and expanding slate of films that are being considered by distributors and festival programmers across the world.
Guneet, you have played an instrumental role in taking Hindi independent cinema to the world. What has been the biggest challenge in this journey?
Biggest challenge initially was to first show them that we exist. Because when you say that you're from India, you're a producer from India, they say, oh, you're from Bollywood. And while they're all excited about Bollywood at the outset of it, but they can only consume 1 or 2 of those films in a year. Their last 3-4 years have...
There is a momentum.
There is a momentum, and people know that there is something different than Bollywood. Now we are not generic, and it's easier to have these conversations. They're very willing to invest their time and energy in knowing what's new and how's it going. So that was the biggest challenge that we broke.
What does a platform like Film Bazaar do for the Indian independent scene?
It's a very necessary platform for the internationalization of Indian cinema. I mean, what we have been trying to tell most of the filmmakers is you don't need an Indian version and an international version. You need the film that would work, but that at the same time would prove to your audiences that, they should not always ask for the same things. It's the problem of not positioning yourself 1 mile ahead of the audience. If you stand 20 feet from your audience, they will be able to catch up. And in a few years, well, finally, they would have walked that mile, and you would not necessarily need to have 2-hour-long films with all the melodramatic topoi that we are so familiar with.
Naham janami kampi devam na devam.
The films that have incubated at the Screenwriters Lab or the Co-Production Lab here have been celebrated at film festivals across the country. The biggest success is Ritesh Batra's The Lunchbox, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival last year. Titli, which was developed here, also went to the Cannes Film Festival. Court premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and Liar's Dice, which was in the Bazaar, is India's entry to the Oscars this year. These films trace their roots back to the parallel cinema movement of the 1970s and 80s. Many of those films focused on social critique. Directors such as Shyam Benegal and Govind Nihalani made films that exposed the corruption, religious intolerance and feudalism in Indian society. Present-day Hindi film directors tend to tell more personal urban stories. The stories are Indian, but they have an international style. Over the last decade, the lines between independent cinema and mainstream cinema have increasingly blurred. Hindi directors like Anurag Kashyap and Dibakar Banerjee are working with popular stars and including songs in their narratives. Meanwhile, mainstream names like Amir Khan and Karan Johar are backing Hindi films. You and Anurag, in a sense, were what Shyam Benegal and Govind Nihalani were to the quote-unquote parallel movement in the 1970s and 80s. You were to, let's say, this new wave of Hindi cinema, the semi-independent Hindi cinema, or whatever you would like to call it. Both of you at this point are working with mainstream stars. Both of you are speaking in a more popular voice. What are the dangers in terms of your artistic vision when you start talking to a marketplace?
The only thing to fall back is, I think, I would say the ingenuity within the creative field. You see, you can't be smart with the politics of the day. You can't be, because it's something that you can't control. You can't be smart with the prejudices of the day. I can't seduce you into being a non-racist. If you're a racist, I'll have to either outlaw you or brainwash you or preach you or something like that, or have a hard change to make you a non-racist. But I can't seduce you. I can't divert you into being a racist. So you cannot play with any of those pillars of conservatism against which you're breaking your head. Therefore, what you do is you fall back on your creativity, and within the realm of the story that you're trying to tell, try and put in as many points of defiance as you can. And that's all you can. Believe, I haven't found out any practical answer to this except this one. I can say we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. But I'm a filmmaker. मेरे को फिल्में बनानी आती हैं. तो मैं उसी फिल्म के अंदर जितनी defiances मैं लगा सकता हूँ, मैं लगा दूँगा. लेकिन समझ लो वो फिल्म है, it's a love story. Let's say it's a genuine love story. About 250-year-old people, about 250-year-old. So it's a love story about two people who are sort of, desperately wanting to be together, but they are caught in their families, and they are in different families. How can I tell that story? Probably by casting 250-year-old protagonists. And then the commercial value of the film will come down, because everybody wants to see youth, because the audience hasn't broken free of the trance of youth. They are not independent of the trance of youth. So my budget comes down to 1/10 of what it should be. Then comes my creativity to try and tell a tale within that budget. And that's all I can do. And that's what I did with LSD or Oye Lucky or Titli as a producer or whatever. So there are many, many ways in which every subject can be infused with a defiance of the normative.
Killa and Court are independent films today. But these filmmakers later on, when they make their second film or third film, after they get the kind of success that you guys did, they will also be funded with the studio. So how do you actually retain this?
It has always been a fight to have your freedom, to have your independence in terms of ideas and thoughts and execution and the movies that you make. Like, say for example, if I'm making a movie like Bombay Velvet, if I have a big star cast, see, like entire market is driven by massive stars. And it's also driven by marketing and stuff like that. So if you have a big star cast and they believe in your idea, which is independent in origin, then automatically what happens is that becomes your currency to fight with the studio system. And the studio system is also like essentially just doing business. They're business people. They've got investments from some body, a certain body, and they need to show return on investments. They need to show growth. So they don't really want to experiment. By nature, they don't want to experiment. They just want to put out something there that keeps generating revenue. So the thing is, most times they're not equipped to understand something that's not been done before, something that's not with a reference point. But when there's a lot of faith that comes into a certain thing, and also the track record of a filmmaker and people, then they'll give you that space. But the problem later on becomes marketing. It's like, I have a product, you figure out how to market this product. But you can't tell me beforehand that this is how we have to market this, so you have to give me content to market, which is predetermined.
Yeah.
That kind of takes the freedom away.
Anurag, this new generation of independent filmmakers, how are they different from your generation in form, narrative? How would you, when you look at their films, what is the difference that you see?
The one big difference is that today's generation of filmmakers know they are not alone. See, because when we were making movies, we actually felt that we were alone. There was no social network binding us. Till we did not start blogging on PFC, a lot of like-minded people did not come together. So I, for years, felt like some kind of a strange nutcase. Everybody would look at me and, why you like this? And I did not connect with filmmakers like me from world over. And it happened over a period of time. Today's filmmakers are there, and this social network, there are audience that are empowering those filmmakers, saying that we are with you. But this empowerment has to translate into revenue because unfortunately, filmmaking is the only art form that costs money.
2013 was a watershed year for Hindi cinema. The Lunchbox, made on a budget of about 10 crore, grossed close to 90 crore globally. Other films like Monsoon Shootout, Kissa and Fandry won raves at film festivals around the world. How can we build on this success? What are the soft spots? Where does Hindi cinema go from here? If you had to pinpoint, let's say, one area that you find problematic with Indian films, what would that be? What is the soft spot that they need to fix?
I would say voiceover because I think sometimes films are trying to be sometimes a bit too didactical. Is it a word that exists?
Yes.
I think maybe they should be more confident. It's funny because when I meet people, usually they are very confident about, you know, the pitch. They really are beautiful storytellers like that. But then I see the movie and it seems like they are afraid that the audience won't get it, and they really maybe explain sometimes too much with flashbacks, with voiceovers, and I think most of the time they should be more confident with the material they have, which is already quite good, and not trying to point out, oh, did you get this and did you get that? Because nobody wants to be taken as a stupid spectator, and you always have the feeling, no, I got it, thank you, don't explain to me. So it's better to get it already well without the off voice. And so yes, sometimes things like that, and otherwise, yeah, always the length is sometimes, because it's okay to have we screened Gangs of Wasseypur, so I mean length is not a problem. If it makes sense to have a long film, then no problem. But if it's just to make it longer, that's sometimes editing should be. I think maybe more editors could join the market.
Paulo, if you had to give one piece of advice to the next generation of independent filmmakers, what would that be? You know, what can we do in the art that we're creating that will then go out and speak to more people?
Well, I mean, I feel that what probably is still missing, and it's something that Film Bazaar is taking care of correcting, is a connection with the external world. For the longest time, it's a mutual fault. For the longest time, the outside world, especially Europe and North America, have been reducing India and Indian cinema to Bollywood. Now, thanks to initiatives like Film Bazaar, people are discovering that there is a whole world, an entire continent of stories, of different approaches, different languages, where you can find such riches that, as I said, it's like an entire continent. And I believe that in the years to come, but it's already been happening, more and more people will come here to Film Bazaar and discover the riches of Indian cinema. And this mutual conversation is what is going to build what is still lacking, which is the penetration of Indian cinema in the international market beyond what Bollywood has already done. Bollywood doesn't need to expand. I mean, it's already everywhere. And I'm very hopeful and confident that it will be happening.
What is the one thing you would like to see change in the next 5 years?
Distribution, release, or another way of marrying technology and cinema. That is something where we need to figure that out, on how there can be a pipeline and people can just continue making films and not thinking about because usually the problem is that this is how even I started. We only wanted to make a film. We would die to tell a story. And at the end of it, you don't realize that you have to start ground up to release it. So that even lacked in me. I have understood that the harder way. And that is my only thing to everyone else. And the only hope that, we can continue making films and there can be a Focus Features, there can be a Miramax, there can be a Long Ride in India, and there can be an IFC, we can find a way of existing and releasing and getting out there.
That's a lot to think about. I'm going to go watch some movies. You chew on that. I hope you enjoyed our special show out of Film Bazaar, Goa.
Hi, this is Ranveer Singh. Subscribe to the Film Companion and get your film fix.